down for a meal and conversation. All are invited to the table to hear the message of inspiration and hope from small business owners across the country as we celebrate diversity in culture and cuisine. Welcome to Food Coma, Conversations Over Meals in America, hosted by Cynthia McAllister. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Food Coma, Conversations Over Meals in America. And I'm your host, Cynthia McAllister. And I am so excited about our guest today. Okay, his name is Tom Gay, and he's the founder of Tribe Up. Now, Tribe Up is a wonderful organization that we will talk about more, and we will talk more about how Tom is working to help support the community. So, lots of great things to get into. But before we get started, of course, we got to get into the food. All right, so now this dish that Tom shared is, I believe it's linguine with clam sauce. Is that right, Tom?
That is right, Cynthia.
This dish was very delicious. Now, the reason why I really love it is because I am a big fan when it comes to seafood. So when you told me this dish and I looked at the recipe, I was like, this is right up my alley. And when I was able to make it and see all the flavors in there, it's so good. It reminds me of restaurant quality dishes. And I'm sure this is something that you can find in different fancy restaurants. But tell me a little bit more about how you decided to share this dish and what does it mean to you?
Well, the dish comes from a recipe I've had for over 40 years. And I say I had, my wife and I have had. And it's one of those dishes that it takes very little time to fix. It's simple. The ingredients most people will have available. And when it comes together, it's like there's nothing like it. It's got this little bit of spicy tang, as you probably have seen from the red pepper flakes that you add to it. But when you put those together with the complexity of the clam sauce, you go, wow, this is amazing. I have to say, when I was thinking about what recipe to share, it didn't take me but 30 seconds to come up with one. And secondly, when I saw the actual recipe, it's so used so often that it's got lots of, let's call it kitchen um, spots on it that I had to go recreate it instead of just taking the recipe card and sending it to you. So I could never have sent you one with that many kitchen spots from its heavy use. So there you go.
Oh, fantastic. And thank you again for sharing the delicious recipe. So now let's talk a little bit more about you, Tom. Before we get into your business, I know one of the things that you do is you have a program in Africa, which you started that had to do with food. Can you talk a little bit more about that program?
Well, I can. Thank you for asking because it's such a dear program or dear initiative in my heart and in my family's heart because my wife and daughter and I did this together back 20 years ago. We started it. And what the way it evolved is we went to Africa with a church group into a suburb outside of Cape Town. And coming from Southern California, where we live, it was a real eye opener because we live in a privileged country, in a privileged region of the country, and yet there are so many people that we don't even know about in such great need that when we went there, we said, we've seen something that we cannot not respond to. Now I put the double not together intentionally. When you encounter things like we saw, children who go to school but don't have food, and that's amongst the mildest of the challenges that we saw. The problem of what I call institutionalized poverty is so great in that region of the world and in others, but we just said, given our backgrounds, given our hearts, we saw a setting that we could not respond to. So I'll never forget, it was August of 2000. And we're in a school working with the children, fourth grade, I think it was, as I recall, working with the children. And we encountered the principal. This is a man who started weeping, and he was weeping. He said, they've just declared a national holiday, and I know my children won't eat all weekend at home. And now there's a third day, that holiday Monday, that they won't eat. And when we heard that, we said, well, we can do something about that. So we partnered up with 6, as we used to say, mothers from the tenements in that community. And we said, well, let's put our hearts and heads together and see if we can feed some of these kids. So together with those 6 mothers, we made 2 pots of soup. And this is my wife and I now. We took that into the 4th grade class, and we fed about 60 to 70 kids that day. And it was the only meal they were going to get that day. We had another statement that says, we can feed 60, then we can feed 600. Why not? What's standing in the way? It's only thinking and planning it through. Well, over the next few months, we went from feeding 60 to 600. At the end of our season there, we were feeding close to 8,000 children every day in this community. We built an organization there in those first few years that grew to about 60 people. And this past November, we celebrated the 20th anniversary of our organization, now totally led and supported by South Africans. This was the most significant piece of my journey.
That's fantastic, Tom. And I'm so happy you were able to share. And what's the name of your organization?
In South Africa, it's called Monte Cristo Ministries.
Perfect. Now let's talk a little bit about you and your business. Okay, so we talked about you are the founder of Tribe Up. Now explain, what is Tribe Up?
Well, Tribe Up is the product of my being on a lifelong, as we would call it, serial entrepreneuring journey. I've started 7 companies in my career. And I can say 7 successful companies. And I built some pretty sizable firms. I took one public back 30 years ago. The focus of these companies has largely been around using technology and using it to bring people together into relationships. Because as you look at how technology has evolved over the last 40 years, the more technology that comes into our life, the more it seems to disrupt people-to-people relationships. And Tribe Up, the latest iteration of my relationship technology building focus, is aimed at recognizing that we've got to get out of this noise and out of this disconnected culture that we're in and get back to people relationships. Talk to one another. Now, who do you talk to? The answer to that question comes when you recognize that we all have tribes. We all have groups of people who we share things in common with and associate with. Now, what if there was a way to take your group or groups, treating them as individual groups, and bring them together in a collaborative, conscious, and responsible setting? And that's what Tribe Up is bringing to the marketplace.
Yeah, and I have to say, I'm a part of Tribe Up, and I think it's a fantastic group and organization. And I really appreciate the approach that's taken to build the relationships first before doing anything further. And that is something that's really, really important to helping to grow your business. So we are going to hear more from Tom Gay right after this quick break.
We were looking for some place we'd never been before, so I used the Key Spot app and found Shell's Bistro. Patricia!
This bistro is great. How did you find it?
I use the Key Spot app. Enter location and it finds businesses and events. Oh, here. See?
I love that. All the information in one key spot.
Key Spot. Find and share businesses, find and share services and events. All in one key spot. Download for free today.
And we're back with more of Food Coma Conversations Over Meals in America, sponsored by KeySpot by Quality SAP. And I'm your host, Cynthia McAllister, here with Tom Gay. So, Tom, now we talked about your business and being the founder now of Tribe Up. Now, I'd like to hear a testimony of how you've overcome challenges. And I know you have a long history when it comes to business. So, what testimony would you like to share?
Well, the interesting thing, I saw this written the other day by a young man who I'm mentoring. I think that's the best way to say it. And he has started a new business in a new area. And he wrote and published the statement that starting a business is nothing but a series of pivots. Now, pivot is a term. It means a change in direction. You're going down this pathway and you realize there's a obstacle ahead, so you pivot out of the way of that obstacle to go around it or in a new direction. Well, in every business that you start, and it doesn't matter whether you're starting a restaurant or a shop or whatever, you're going to learn along the way that something you did isn't working out. That's when you pivot. Well, I've started so many companies. I think I've learned how to twirl like a ballerina in terms of the numbers of pivots that I've had to do over the years. Tribe Up is today, where it is today, is a pivot, is a product of a pivot that we did about a year ago. Here's a good example. We all know there's a lot of fake online players out there who are spamming and trying to hack and trying to get into your information in all kinds of ways. There are bots and technical tools that are creating fake accounts, and who knows how many fake accounts there are in Facebook that are simply there trying to get you to give them some information about you. Well, that's the nature of people in technology today. When we first set Tribe Up well over a year ago, we're about now coming on to 2 years since in this fall, since we've been in the market. We did a pivot last year when we realized that about 20% of the people trying to come into our platform were fakes. They were just trying to get in so that they could take whatever it is that they do and spam the dickens out of our members. So the first pivot that we made in this topic was to say, okay, we're from this point on going to be, you get in only by invitation. Someone has to invite you in. Like I invited you in, Cynthia, some months back. Now, the beauty of being invited is that whoever gets in, someone who's already been invited is inviting somebody else. So we're sort of like birds of a feather now, in that we're agreeing to be collaborative, conscious, and responsible. So that pivot took place, and all of a sudden, the fake accounts could be found and removed, and the remaining accounts that were in the system were validated or verified, as we say, and therefore we knew that the community was getting better and better. Now, our model is such that we're not selling our members' data. That's something Facebook does or other companies do. We don't do that. It's private. It's yours. It's personal. It's your tribe. The fact that you have a tribe of people who knit is your business, not my business. If that were in any other social platform, it would be open to exploitation and putting Google pixels into ads to try to push new knitting needles or whatever the heck that would be the marketeer's dream. In our case, no, private, personal, yours. You control, we don't. So that was a pivot born out of discovering how noisy, that's a nice way to say it, and intrusive so many people can be in trying to hack their ways into the middle of our lives. with doing that, the effectiveness and value of what we've created stands out even more in the otherwise noisy market.
Wow, Tom, you hit on some really great points. The first of which was the pivot aspect. When you're in business, you have to be flexible. You have to know how to shift and, like you say, pivot to try something else to get it to where you're going to be as far as your success level. So that was a great point. The other great point that you brought out about Tribe Up is the idea about how everybody could use Tribe Up to group together and bring together people within their tribe, whether it is a activity that you're involved in and you want to bring people together using the tool that you have for Tribe Up, or if they're a business and they want to bring people together and collaborate using the tool for Tribe Up. There's so many great ways to use it. So my next question is, why do you love your business? Why are you so passionate about what you do?
I'm going to let you in on a secret just between you and I. Okay, I'm probably the oldest technology startup founder you'll find anywhere in the country. Okay, and you probably think I'm in my mid 40s. Well, I'm not. I'm in my mid 70s doing this because I love being with people. I'm a people person. I think it shows. And you know, there's a model that I learned years ago, and that model is our life is spent moving from survival to stability to success and then significance. So when you find what your significance is, and you typically find it somewhere after a lot of challenges through survival, reaching for stability and reaching for success. But my significance in this stage of my life is impacting people and creating a better culture and a better set of outcomes for everyone. Now, I don't know how many years I have left to do this, but it's keeping me sharp. I'm involved with wonderful people like yourself. I'm having an impact, and hopefully some of the audience that watches this show will see that there are things they can do to move towards their success and significance. And you know, the legacy will be the people you leave behind and what effect you had on them. So this is my seasons of significance, and I love what I do. The last thing I want to do is walk out the door and play golf at that golf course, because then I'd be pivoting, trying to become better in an area that isn't that meaningful to me.
And that was one of the things that drew me to working with you, Tom, because of your ability to have that passion to help other people and bring people together. You know, that's what it's all about with what I do with KeySpot. And I'm so glad to have you as a KeySpot business partner. Can you share how KeySpot has helped to support your business?
Well, KeySpot has given me the opportunity to present my purpose and passion out into a group of people who I would not have otherwise had access to. So I'm getting continuous exposure for the things that I stand for. And I'll say the people that I love, which are people who need people, and they're in KeySpot. It gives me that opportunity to just be there, get exposure to Tribe Up, share a message, and hopefully help every person who hears this message move one step closer to what it is they're trying to be in a meaningful way. And that to me is a joy. That's when I can do that. When I can help you get one step closer to your purpose, then we're all moving towards the same thing.
That is so fantastic. Well, thank you, Tom. We're going to take another quick break, and we'll be back with more of Tom Gay. we're back with more of Food Coma, Conversations Over Meals in America. And I'm here with Tom Gay, who is the founder of Tribe Up. Now, Tom, I do have to ask you, who are two inspirations that you have and why when it comes to what you do in business?
Oh gosh, I've had so many people I could cite. One, so these are people that they're not world renowned, but they're renowned to me. For example, I had a mentor back when I was in my 20s, a long, long time ago, who gave me an article that was, in effect, the article that said you can be anything you want to be if you think you can, if you set your mind to it. And that he would get out of the way to empower me to be that anything I wanted to be. Well, he was my boss in a company. And over the next 5 or 6 years in that season, as fast as anyone could imagine, I kept getting promoted into leadership and higher levels because I wanted to and I expected to. And he said, well, I'll grow you as fast as you want to grow you. So that was one. That his name is Bill Eldridge. I'll acknowledge that he's no longer here, but he just inspired me tremendously. Now, in the more public way, I'm a big fan of business books, and I've read a gazillion business books. And one that I always go back and cite is the book 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, written by Stephen Covey back in the 90s. It's timeless. It is something that fits any generation, any season, anywhere you are in your career. The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And if you simply extract those 7 habits and memorialize them in some place where you can be reminded of those, what you're going to find yourself is coming back to what I call the true north of where you should be working to improve yourself and become more effective, more productive. And those 7 habits are universal, and they fit everything in our lives.
Wonderful. So when it comes to small businesses who are just coming up, what words of wisdom do you have to share with those business owners?
One thing that stands out, okay, and most people shy away from saying this. If you won't take the risk of making a mistake, then you are frozen where you are. You've heard it, no risk, no return. I'm not thinking of it that way, but you have to be continuously willing to do something. And if it doesn't work, you go back and do something else. So the avoidance of risk is not a way to build a successful business. Should I hire my first employee? Well, if you don't hire your first employee, you're going to be stuck doing what you're doing today over and over and over again. Should I invest in a new operating tool, computer enabled operating tool? Well, if you don't, you're stuck. So you may make mistakes, but you're making mistakes on the pathway to making success. And there's no successful business anywhere that doesn't have a trail of mistakes in its past.
That's right. Now, Tom, you shared how KeySpot Business Partners has supported your business. Can you share why you would recommend KeySpot and becoming part of the KeySpot Business Partner Network to others in business?
Well, you've got to take on a position of getting your story out. We all have a story. We all have a message. We all have a reason for people to hear that story and want to come into connection with us. The connection becomes the doorway to the relationship. If you don't optimize getting your story out. And to me, KeySpot is an ideal way to get the story out because it serves such a diverse group of businesses. And it's businesses of all types. It's professional service providers, it's retail storefronts, it's people who are bringing services to other people. And to me, you know, that's the opportunity KeySpot creates for me. So I love it. And, you know, I love what you do, Cynthia. You create this opportunity for all of us to be exposed to far more relationships and opportunities than we would be if you weren't doing what you're doing.
Wow. I really appreciate that, Tom, and I appreciate you and coming on Food Coma Conversations Over Meals in America. So we're going to wrap up this episode. Again, we were so happy to have our special guest, Tom Gay, founder of Tribe Up, here with us at Food Coma Conversations Over Meals in America, sponsored by KeySpot by Quality SAP. We will see you next time for another episode, and stay tuned for the recipe.